Hey guys, welcome back to our next video, and now here we're gonna talk more about Burp, about web application hacking, about fuzzing. In the previous video we've covered the basics and fundamentals that you need to know about web. What is transmitted, how, what are some HTTP codes, what is HTTP, what is a proxy, how Burp is working as a proxy, and so on. So I highly suggest you to go back and rewatch that video if you have any misunderstandings from here, because Burp is a tool for web fuzzing, web application hacking, and so on. So you need to know one of the concepts for general web to understand what Burp is actually doing. So we've installed Burp on Windows, we've installed Java. So if you have an error, go ahead, install Java and set up the variables as I showed in the previous video, and now we have Burp up and running. So this is basically the menu of Burp. I've covered it before, but now we're gonna get into more details. So we have a right top left menu right here about Burp. So these are some basics options. We have intruder, so we can save and what if we have paid version. So here is nothing much we can do. Repeater, window, so yeah, and help. So this bar right there is not much to help us with, but here on the bottom we have different tabs. So under target, this is the tab where we are going to basically scope our targets, inspect our targets. This is when the spider will spite everything. We're going to create a web from spider. This is where we keep our information organized and structured. This is where all the website is going to be displayed, all the content of the website, all the files of the website, all the folders of the website, and so on. So this is a sitemap, right? So here everything is going to be displayed. On the scope, this is literally our target scope. We can add targets to scope, remove from scopes, and by clicking on the sitemap here, we can filter anything there, so it will match our findings. So the filter is basically showing scope items, which I often use because many of the applications have references to other services like Facebook link, Twitter link, and Burp is able to catch these references and paste it here and create a bigger sitemap. But I often like to use that option because I add just the scope I want, just the website I want, and by filtering that, I'm getting just that scope and working with just that targets. They reference targets, yes, but I filter them. So show only request items, show only parameters I request. So these are different options that you want to play through. So hide non-found items, of course this should be on because it is going to get amazingly huge. So filter by MIME type. Of course, one huge suggestion is that whenever you find something that you do not know and you are wondering why is that, just always go there and type the one that you don't know. So for example, meme type, you can open the first link and you can extract and gather as much information as possible. So you see multi-purpose internet mail extensions. Yeah, so go there, see everything that you need and so on. As I said in the previous video, use your mind as a processor, not as a hard drive. So yeah, here different meme types. Therefore, we can sort different files. Like this is gonna filter all file extensions. So it's showing us ASP, GSP, PHP, and so on. We can import anything here. So here we have filter by status code. This is the code we've mentioned before. So we have different codes, and by default the 4xx code is denied because this is basically a client-side error. So you can of course enable that, no worries, everything can work. Okay, so this is the target tab. We have the sitemap, the filter. These are more extended information types. You're gonna see that in future, and we have even the raw data right here. So we have scope where we can set up our scope of targets to work with, and we are done. So we have the proxy. The proxy is when the Burp is starting from where anything begins. So this is the entry point of our Burp suite, and this tab is basically setting up the Burp as a proxy server and configuring the Burp as a proxy server. So proxy, we have intercept, HTTP history, WebSockets history, and options. Okay, so on the intercept, this is the ability to basically capture the request. So when this is on, upon proper configuration, our browser should work as a proxy, and Burp will start capture the request. So if that is off, it won't work that way, so it needs to be on. And here we're going to display the whole body of the request, the raw data, and even the hex values. We have the HTTP history on the other side. This is basically all the history of all the requests that were made. So by accessing web servers, we are sending and receiving HTTP responses and requests, and these requests and responses are stored here. And we can, of course, go there and sort them using methods, URLs, parameters, and so on. But the most important sort is for methods. As I said before, we are most interested in post methods. The next thing we have is WebSocket history. So this is basically which sockets are opening throughout the web, and this is basically the history and log of all sockets that's been opened. And the next option is options, and here we can set up different variables. So the first is proxy listener. Of course, there is a help button right here, so if you're not sure about anything, just go there and just read the documentation that PortSwigger has prepared for us. So here with that button we can restore defaults, load options, and save options. So here we have the first option, proxy listener. So Burp proxy uses listening to receive incoming HTTP requests from your browser. You need to configure your browser to use one of the listeners as its proxy server. So you see it's receiving a connection from my browser. So it's standing here, my browser is here, and it's still on my PC, but this service is working like a proxy server. So it's on my IP address. Of course, it can be on other IP address. You can set the proxy and run Burp from multiple instances, but this is not useful. So it's on the same machine, having same IP address, but working as a proxy. And if I put the Burp here, you won't see basically the connection so good. So that's why I'm putting it here. But Burp is inside the machine. It's stored right here. Okay. So basically, by setting up the proxy, we are telling that our Burp is going to work on that IP with that port, and we're going to say that our Firefox or our browser is going to work, is going to transmit our packets through that proxy. So that's the chain here. So the first thing is to set up the Burp to be listening on 197.0.0.1, which is localhost, and port is going to be 8080, which is HTTP proxy port. As I said before, if you don't know anything, just go port 8080 and see what that port is used for. Okay. Basically, this port is HTTP proxy, is a port used for HTTP as well, not only the 80. So if you need something like a second web server or something like that, 8080 is often port used. So here, the first thing is to specify that the Burp is gonna run on that IP with that port. Okay. So this is okay. This is everything fine here. And now we need to set up our browser to say to our browser, hey, we are sending a request, just send the request first to that IP and then forward that request. So use that proxy. We're gonna set out to our web browser to use that proxy, to use that IP on that port for forwarding the requests. Okay, so here go to preferences or options. Now go to the bottom and network settings, and now manual proxy configuration. Let's go with 197.0.0.1 port 8080, and we are ready to go. Nice. Yep. So here this is configured and it's okay. So now we have the intercept client requests. So we can go to file extension requests. We can add, remove, edit options here. Use these settings to control which requests are stale for viewing and editing. So basically these rules are for the requests that are captured. So if the requests has nothing to do with that rules, it's like a firewall. If the request has nothing to do with that rules, it's just throw off. That's how it works. So just we have something like a rule, something like a firewall, and if the request comes, it's been filtered with that rules, and if it matches, it's go to our intercept. But if not, then nothing happens. So we've managed to capture a request, but we're gonna get that free in a second. Specify the details of the server to which the request will be sent. Download Mozilla. We're gonna go and cancel that for now. Just gonna turn that off. Now go to the next option. Of course, if you're not sure, open here. It has some documentations. Read it, and you're gonna get more information. So the intercept server responses. So the Burp can not only intercept our request as a client, but it can intercept our server's responses, right? So we can manipulate the responses to our machine. So it can manipulate either client requests or server responses. And see, we have something familiar, but if you want, touch it on your own, create and modify rules to fit your need. Now we're gonna stick with the default one, and this is kind of the same. Use these settings to control which responses are stored for viewing and editing in the Intercept tab. So this is basically the very same thing that we discussed before, how the requests and responses are transmitted and how they are calculated. So if the server response matches the rules, we can go and play around with it. So the next thing we have is intercept WebSocket messages. This option, of course, is for transmitting and intercepting WebSocket messages. It's obvious. And then we have response modifications. Of course, you can play around with different options. You can read documentations to see what this is all about, but these settings are used to perform automatic modification of responses. So if you want to stick with some kind of your own rules about the responses and to search for, let's say, different things, you can play around with these options, but if all of them are removed, we get the raw response, the raw request, so we see anything we want. So I often do not use that options. Of course, here match and replace, these settings are used to automatically replace parts of the request. Of course, it's obvious, just we have something like a rules to modify. See, we have the user agent, so by applying such rules, we can just use different user agents, replace the user agents, and so on. So basically, these options or rules are used for automatically replacing some strings. So user agent is nothing much for string, it's just a string. So with this, we can automatically do that. But if I need, I always do that manual. And of course, we have SSL pass-through. These settings are used to specify destination web servers for Burp with directly pass-through SSL connection. So this option is to basically hard code the web servers that force SSL connection. But when we're gonna set up our certificate, we will not get any problem whatsoever. And then we have the next one, which is basically these settings control some specific details of Burp proxy's behavior. Okay, so see, we have use HTTP1 in request to server, use HTTP1 in response, because now we're using HTTP 1.1. So this forcing older HTTP version. Set response header to connection calls. Set connection calls to incoming requests. So these are some predefined options that upon clicking, they are automatically done. Okay? So now options are configured, our proxy is okay. So with that tab right here, we are saying to Burp, hey, start your service on that IP with that port and wait for a connection. On the other hand, on the Firefox, with these options right here, we say, hey, upon sending an HTTP request, first send it to that IP address. Okay, so we are saying that send it to that IP address right here, which is the localhost, the same IP address on that port. And on the other hand, the Burp itself here has the opportunity and the functionality to store the request and to modify the request, right? So it gets the request and it's coded so it can store, modify, wait, put on hold on the request, modify the request, and then send it back to the server. So now we are sending a normal request with Burp, we modify the request and we're sending it back to the server. So now let's just make a quick demonstration about that. So click OK here. Now go to Google and open Burp, go to Intercept, now it's off, now turn it on and type enforcecyber.com. So you see the browser now stopped working, so it's just loading, and that's because the request is stopped to Burp. You see Burp now is pinging yellow. So now we send the request went to Burp and it stopped right there where it is. So upon clicking the Burp, we have a get method. So this is what we wanting from Enforce-Cyber. So we're getting the root of the web server, which is the main page. So the web server has always a root folder, and that root folder is where the web server is hosted. So our root in that case is going to be enforcecyber.com. Then we have the HTTP version, which is HTTP 1.1. We have the host name, which is enforcecyber.com, and see we have the user agent right here. So we have Mozilla 5.0, Windows, Win64, 64 bits. So just from the user agent, the server now knows that I'm using a Firefox. My Windows version is 10. My Windows architecture is 64 bits. So this is just from the stupid user agent. So see how much information the server gets just by getting a page from the server, just connecting to the server. See how much information we give. So we have accept type HTML. So this is what types of documents it's accepting and getting. Right? So we have accept language, we have the encoding, yeah, we have connection close, and we have updating secure request 1. Okay, so here we can modify the user agent. We can go with 1 or SD. We can go with version, let's say Linux Debian. We can just put anything here, you know, just anything. But if you want to be more specific and more realistic, you can go, of course, in Google and search user agents. But now our intercept is on, so I'm going to show you that in a second. And now this is the raw request that we have sent with raw parameters. Now on the headers we have all these parameters like structured in a table. We can add, remove, and go up and down with parameters. On the hex we get the hexadecimal values of our request. So this is the raw packets that were sent to the server. Literally the raw packets. See? And now we have either action to forward that request. Forward means to let it go. Drop means to cut down the request and stop the request, stop the session. And on action we have send to spider, interruler, and so on. By clicking right click we have the same actions here. Right? So upon clicking drop, see what happens. Drop again, this is another request. Another request. Okay. So upon clicking drop we have error. Request was dropped by the user. So it's not transmitted, we did not have session. Okay, so let's just put the intercept to on and refresh that again. So see we have now a cookie value. So CFD it, and now we have the value of the cookie. So we can even modify that cookie as well. And imagine what can happen if you can somehow steal someone's cookie and use it here. Like when you forward the request, you're gonna have access to his account, right? So this is well-known attack, cookie hijacking, session hijacking. So we are stealing the cookies, using the cookies, and using that cookies to authenticate to the server. So basically, now let's go and forward the request. Forward and see what happens. Now we are on the website, right? It's loading. So now I'm going to close that up. I'm going to go to Google again. And I will explain one more thing. So if I go to intercept and type like enforcecyber.com, now in this moment when the interception is on, I'm not sure why it didn't work out. Let's try to reload that. Or maybe I forgot to install the certificates, that's why we are not able to get the requests anytime, because the server is using secure connection, but we did not set up any certificates. So we need for that in order to use Burp for HTTPS sessions. So now to install certificates, I'm gonna open Burp HTTP Burp. Now CA certificate, download that, save file, and I'm gonna save it to desktop. Just go to desktop, paste that here, okay. And now in the Firefox, go to options once again, go to privacy and secure, down to the bottom certificates, view certificate. Now import desktop, just trust that one, okay. And now we've installed the CA certificate for Burp, and now if everything is correctly, I should get a request now. Yeah, okay, so we are getting a request. I'm just gonna drop that. I'm gonna basically shut down anything and restart my Firefox. So upon working with HTTP servers, HTTPS, sorry, it's always a good practice to install your certificates of Burp, because somehow it's bugging. Like when you don't have the certificates, it's not always capable of gathering all the requests you need. But when installing the certificates, everything is going alright. So intercept, navigate, info.cyber.com, nice. So yeah, so this is the request. Now upon that phase, our request is standing here. So we are not transmitting the request to the server, right? So we send the request to Burp, the request is stopped here, and we still do not have an active session. We have an active session when we have packets flowing by. So if we forward that packet, then we have session. Now we are here, our packet is here, and the server do not know nothing about our connection, do not know completely anything about it. The server is standing there, and for his there is no connection because our request is standing right here, right? So by clicking drop, the connection is cut off right here, and by clicking forward, we forward that packet to the server and back, and now we can say that we have a session. But before that, no. So I'm just gonna turn the intercept off, go to Firefox, yeah, and now this is like our interception tab, our proxy. This is all you need to know and all you need to configure about it. Of course, you can play around with different options and of course modify it, see how it works and so on. You see on the HTTP history, we have info.cyber.com, we have the URL here, we have the method. We can just modify and sort the methods by clicking here. We see now we have post methods here, but now we did not post anything to Info4Cyber, so yeah. These are the methods, this is the URL, parameters, edited status, this is the code I told you about, which is okay. Therefore, we have length of the request, MIME type HTML, and of course we have the IP address. And here we have even the cookie, right? So the code here is found, everything is okay, and this is just the HTTP history. The main thing that you need to remember here is to sort anything by methods. Therefore, we have the WebSockets. These are the sockets that were opened. And basically, that's it, guys, about a proxy. So now I'm gonna shut down the video, go ahead, install the certificates, configure your proxy, and try to capture some requests, try to modify the requests. And it's even better if you can create your own web server with some kind of a simple web application, install Burp on other machine, and try to basically edit a request to the server, so you on the server side is gonna see the modified request, so you can see what is actually happening right there. Okay guys, so thank you everyone for watching, and I'm gonna see you in the next video.